Hola, bienvenidos. Hoy en nuestro video vamos a repasar los usos de para. So in today's video, we're going to go over the uses of para. Now, if you've already seen our por video, then you know that por and para are typically both for, or thought of as for, but they're used in different contexts. So depending on what you wish to convey, we have to choose one or the other, kind of like when you learned ser and estar or saber and conocer. So let's see the uses of para. Now, just like with por, I've organized the uses of para into an acronym to make it easier to remember what they are. I didn't invent this acronym, but I find it super useful to use for memorizing the uses of para. So we've got the acronym perfecto, right here in black, and then each of those breaks down into different uses. So we've got purpose, expectation or goal, recipient, a future date or deadline, employment, comparison and contrast, toward a place, and opinion. All of these things need para when expressed in Spanish sentences. So let's break those down one by one. Purpose is pretty much what something is for. So let's say el libro es para la clase de historia. The book is for the history class. So what's the purpose of the book? Oh, it's for history class. So anytime you're talking about what something's for, that would be purpose, and you need para. Expectation or goal. Now, in this use of para, think of para as in order to. So you do one thing in order to get a certain result. That's the goal of the action. So for example, estudio para sacar buenas notas. I study in order to earn good grades. Now notice that para, if a verb is directly following it, we do not conjugate. It stays in infinitive, just like you see here. So why do I study? In order to get good grades. That's the expectation of why I'm doing that action. That uses para. If I'm saying who something is for, that would be this, recipient. So for example, Paco compró la sandía para Pedro. Paco bought the watermelon for Pedro, meaning that Pedro is going to be the recipient of the watermelon. It is for him, he's going to have it. It's going to be his after Paco gives it to him. So in this case, we're talking about recipients. Now, para is also used for future dates or deadlines. So like when something's due, that would use para. So la profesora quiere los ensayos para el lunes. The professor wants the essays for Monday. This use of for is expressing a deadline or a future date, so therefore we use para. Anytime you want to express employment, so who someone works for, that would use para as well. La señora trabaja para la tienda. The lady works for the store. The store is her employer. Comparison contrast. This one's pretty nifty. So this is used when you're trying to make sort of a link between two ideas that are kind of opposites. So for example, for a cat, she really likes water. Cats don't typically like water. So in that case, I'm making a compare and contrast. Normally cats wouldn't like water, this one happens to. This sort of situation in Spanish requires para. So for example, para un niño es muy sabio. For a child, he is very wise. So we're making that comparison of what's normal and a contrast in this case. Those situations use para. We also use para if you're talking about some sort of destination, like you're heading towards a place. Voy para el mercado con cestas grandes. I'm going towards the market with big baskets. So that's my destination. Where am I heading? The mercado. So that para works for towards a place. And lastly, in the perfecto acronym, we've got opinion. So I'm sure you've seen little set phrases like this before. Para ti, para mí, para ella, para nosotros. If you're expressing an opinion in that way, we always use para. So for example, para ti, hacer snowboard es muy difícil, pero para mí es fácil. For you, snowboarding is difficult, but for me, it's easy. We're expressing an opinion about this thing, so we're using para to do so. Remember that when you use para, you can't say para tú, that doesn't exist. It's para ti. Same thing, you can't say para yo, it's para mí. All right, and those are our uses of para. So remember our acronym is perfecto. It's much shorter than the por acronym. So one recommendation I have is work with the acronym that works best for you. If it's easier to remember perfecto because it's shorter, you can use process of elimination. So if it's not in perfecto, it's probably a use of por, for example. So perfecto, we went over each of these situations and had an example of each one. Lastly, just be aware that just like por, there are some phrases that are just set phrases that use para. For example, one of the most common ones you'll see, because there's not as many of them as with por, is para siempre, which means forever. This is just a set phrase that uses para. So just be aware that those exist as well, and when you look up phrases, you will be able to see that. So study these, get used to seeing them in context. The more you use them, the more natural por versus para becomes. Gracias. Thank you for checking out our video on uses of para. If you haven't, make sure you look at the video for uses of por as well. That'll help you get used to seeing examples of por and para. Gracias, buena suerte y nos vemos.